Hello everybody, welcome to our HTML crash course. So we are on episode 3, and in this episode we are going to talk about HTML inline and block elements. We're also going to touch a little bit on JavaScript and a whole lot more. So just stay tuned with me and let's get started. So let's talk about HTML block and inline elements. And with the block elements, they are elements that start on a new line. Okay, so the browser automatically add some spacing and margins to the block elements. So let's make an example. Okay, so let's make a div. Let's create a div. div for a div. Alright, and let's put this h1 and p tag in it. So what we are going to do is to right click on the index.html page. Right, we are going to copy path. So when you copy path, you open your browser, you open a new tab, you right click and you paste. Okay, so when you paste your tab, you click on enter and you're going to get your page here. Alright, there is another way of also opening your browser. So let's split the pages. Let's split the pages, okay? And let me zoom in a little. Okay, so this is a div. Alright, so let's create another div here. Let's duplicate the div and let me refresh. So as you can see, when I duplicate the div, I'm getting an automatic new line, although I don't give any space here. And it doesn't matter how many or how much space I give here, it is going to remain the same because it has taken already the default styling from the web browser. Okay, so let me give you a tip. Because we are not using a live server, I have to refresh my page anytime I make changes. Okay, anytime I make a change, I have to click on refresh. Okay, so beginning of our course, I told you to go and install an extension. Okay, an extension which is called live server. Okay, this is the extension. So if you've not installed it, kindly pause the video and go and install the live server because it's going to make our life so much easier. Okay, so when you install the live server, then we continue our video. Okay, so after you install the live server, you're going to see the live server logo here and this bar. Okay, so when you click on it, it says go live. So let's click on it. Okay, so now we have our new page here. Okay, anyway, let's close everything and start everything afresh. So I'm going to close the Chrome browser. Okay, and let's click on our live server. Alright, so we are live now, and let me make another div and see what we can get. So as you can see, I don't need to refresh. Okay, I don't need to refresh. The moment I create another div, I get it automatically. Alright, so this is a block element. Okay, it's gonna take automatic spacing. Paragraph is also a block element. So let me clean this up. Let me put a paragraph here. Alright, and lorem 40. I'm gonna use 20. Alright, so you can see it's also going to take another spacing. h1 is also a block element. So this is h1. So apart from div and h1 and the paragraph, we also have other block elements. Okay, so footer is a block element. Okay, so this is how we specify a footer. With and copy. Alright, and you get your @ sign. So we have main as well, which is a block element. We have other block elements. We have form, we have table, we have lists, we have header, we have black quote, article, address, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let me clear everything. Okay, I'm going to clear the footer and the main. Okay, and we are going to switch on to inline elements. So I'm going to create an inline element. And inline element does not start on a new line. Example, let me put a span here. Span is an inline element. Okay, so let me copy this text and insert it in the span. As you can see, there's no much difference. Okay, there's no difference, although I've inserted an element here. Okay, so we also have other inline elements. Let me say strong. Okay, it's also an inline element. It's gonna make the change alright, but it doesn't break up the page. Alright, so I want to style this span. Okay, so unless you start a span before you know that span is actually part of this block of text. So let's add our CSS to our page. I think at this point you already know how to add CSS. Okay, so you can pause the video and add the CSS because we've already created the page already here. So if you've not created a page, let me delete the page. Okay, and let's create the file here. You create a new file and you name it style.css. Alright, so when you name it style.css, you come back to your HTML folder, and in the head section you are going to link it. Alright, so link. This is how we link our CSS. Okay, so this is how we link our CSS. Link, then rel. Okay, so rel is the attribute and the style sheet, and href is also the link resource. And this is how we link it. You are going to go to your style.css folder or file. Okay, you're going to locate your style.css. So this is going to go directly and pick up style.css. As time goes on, we are going to talk about HTML file path and how to pick up any particular file. Okay, any sort of file. We are going to talk about it as time goes on in our crash course. Alright, so let's go ahead and start our span. We spoke about giving styles to HTML pages. So this is inline CSS. Okay, since we are on inline elements, let's test an inline CSS. So we have to give the style attribute, and we are going to go with color. Okay, so as you can see, we have styled this span directly in the HTML. document. So what I did here is I actually went ahead to style our background of the web page, and initially it wasn't working because the CSS linking wasn't right. It was actually right, but it was not working, so I had to use another method which says let's go to our root folder with the dot slash. Okay, so this dot slash means we are going to our root folder, and we're also going to talk about it later in the crash course. Alright, so now we start our background color. Okay, so anytime you link a CSS, just test it and see if it works before you continue to add other styles to it. Alright, so let's go back to this div element. Okay, so some of you may not understand what a div is. A div is a container. Okay, so any element in a div or nested in a div, if you style it, you can give direct stylings to all the elements which is nested in a div. Okay, so let's go ahead and style our div. So because we have two divs here, we are going to give this one a class. Okay, so let's give the class of first. Okay, so let's start our div here and let's call our class Alright, so as you can see, because I styled the div, the styling affects the P1, the P paragraph and the H1. Okay, so that is what a div is, and let me give it a background color. Alright. Okay, so you can also align your text in a div. Okay, so you can literally give stylings to the div. Okay. Alright, so as you can see, div is very powerful. Okay, div container is a very powerful element in HTML. So you can give multiple classes to the divs and style them separately. So let's give this a class of second. let's go to our CSS. And always make sure when you are naming a class, you get it on point, because if you don't get it on point, it's not going to work. Alright, so this is our second div with a styling. So let's say we change this. Alright, we duplicate this class and give it to this one, and automatically it's going to appear or affect it instantly. So let's give it a margin here. So as you can see, the margin gives it space. Okay, so margin, as we talked about earlier in the episode 2, margin is the space outside this container, and padding is the space inside. So take note of this, it's very important and it's going to help you a lot when you are styling your HTML pages. So you can give as wide or as high value as you want, depending on how you want to style your web page. Okay, so take notes, margin is outside and padding is inside. Okay, padding is inside. Alright, so up next is the HTML class attribute. Alright, we've been using class attribute a lot. This is what I mean by class attribute. So the class attribute is used to specify class for HTML elements and style them. Okay, so you can specify classes on multiple elements. Okay, so let's specify a class for this H1. Okay, so let's specify a class of heading and let's style this heading. So we specify it with a full stop and you write your class name, which is the heading, and you use your curly braces, you open and close. Okay, and let's change the color here. Alright, so you can see it overwrites the default or the initial color given by the first class. Okay, this class of first, which is the one here, and as well as this one, the new class that I specified for the H1 directly overwrites the first class, so it changes the color from this bluish to white. Okay, so this is how we use HTML class elements. So we've already spoken a lot about class elements. So with a class, you can give classes to multiple elements, as I mentioned earlier on. Okay, and the class name depends on what you want to use. Okay, so let's give this p tag a separate styling. Okay, I'm going to give it a background color of red. Okay, so this is it. I changed the background color of this paragraph with a class of p tag. Okay, so our next topic is HTML ID attributes, and just as classes for classification and IDs for identification. So the value of the ID attributes must be really unique within the HTML document. Okay, so attributes of an ID is used to print a specific style declaration in the style sheet. So it is used as well by JavaScript also to manipulate elements. Okay, so you cannot have like more than one element with the same ID in the HTML document. So the ID is really supposed to specify or identify one unique HTML element. Alright, and the class can be used for multiple HTML elements. Okay, so let's create our paragraph. And let's give it an ID of para. That's fine. Okay, so let's clear this CSS. So this is how you specify an ID. Use the hashtag and your curly braces. Okay, but before that you have to call your ID, which is the para. Then the curly braces follows. Okay, and we can change the color of this paragraph using the ID. Alright, okay, so using the ID you're able to change the background color of this paragraph. Okay, so let's use ID attribute in JavaScript. So the ID attribute is used by JavaScript to manipulate, okay, and perform specific task in your HTML document. Okay, so let me give you an example. So we are going to use a P paragraph, okay, with an ID of demo. Okay, so this is our P paragraph with an ID of demo, and we are going to run a JavaScript. This is how we run a JavaScript in the script tag. Okay, and when you are using an ID, you have to get elements by ID. So this is how you write get element by ID. You have to specify document dot get element by ID. Okay, and you put it in a bracket and you print your string with the quotation mark. In JavaScript, anything inside the quotation mark is called a string. Okay, so let's call our demo here. Okay, and we have to specify that it is in an HTML document. So inner HTML, okay, inner HTML. So this inner HTML is saying in HTML basically. Okay, so inner HTML is equal to, then we bring our quotation mark in, which is a string. So JavaScript strings, we can put numbers and other attributes inside the string. So we're going to talk about that later when we start our JavaScript crash course. Okay, so these are some basics that you need to keep in mind for now. So let's go ahead and input our text in a string. Okay, so you can see we are having hello world here, okay, which is a paragraph. Okay, which is a paragraph. So let's say we are doing an H1. Let's say we are doing an H1. We are still going to get hello world in an H1. Do you get me? Although we didn't specify anything here. We didn't specify anything here, but we use the JavaScript to change the content of this H1. Okay, we use JavaScript to change the content of that H1. Okay, so let's say if we bring the JavaScript ahead of our H1, it's not going to read. The hi is going to show up, but because we run JavaScript after this H1 and we call the ID of demo, we used it to change the content of the H1. So these are some use cases of JavaScript. Okay,